So in this video, we're going to look at fraction exponents. And another word we use is rational exponents, but I'll probably just say fraction to keep it simple. So let's look at what it actually would look like in a problem. So let's say we wanted to say, okay, what's a fraction exponent look like? So I could give you x to the 1/2 power. Okay. So if I gave you that, essentially what we can do, and this is something you could write down, don't have to, but it's just a good rule of thumb. Any exponent that's a fraction can actually be written as a radical, and we call that radical form. Okay, so any exponent that's a fraction can be written as a radical in radical form. So now let's look at how to do that. Okay, so let's once again look at x to the 1/2. All right, now the first thing you can do is, I mean, honestly, 1/2 is an easier problem, so you can memorize it. But let's say we don't know how to memorize it. So the first thing you can do is say, okay, I know if I'm going to write this as a radical, then I can write my radical. Okay, so write our radical symbol. Now, a radical has an index, which goes right here. It pretty much tells you what type of root you have. Now, I've made videos on this, so if you need to go back and view those, I would go back and check those out. But here is what tells us what type of root we have. It's actually this denominator. Okay, so the denominator tells us what type of root we have. So type of root. It's also, if you want to write it down, it's just the index. Okay, so if this index is 2, that means this would be a square root. Okay, so we don't have to write the 2, but I'll keep it there for you just so you can see it. All right, next thing is, all right, what's going to go inside of the square root? Well, that part's pretty easy. The base of your exponent goes inside of your square root, so x goes on the inside. And then the last part, hopefully you're wondering, is, well, what does this numerator do? Well, the numerator is the exponent of the inside, so exponent of inside. All right, so that's how we set up a radical, or change a fraction exponent to radical form. So let's look at another one. Like, let's say we wanted to do x to the 1/3 power. Okay, now you can pause this and try it if you want, or we can just look at it together. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, any fraction exponent can be written as a radical, so you can kind of cheat this a little bit and draw yourself a radical symbol. Now, once again, I'll do it in a different order this time just so you can see the order in which we do this doesn't matter. Let's just first say, okay, what's going to go inside the radical? Well, remember we said it's the base. So the base of our exponent goes inside of the radical. So now I need to know what type of root this is. Is it a square root, cube root, fourth root? What is it? Well, the denominator from our fraction tells us that. So this is a cube root. All right, now the last part is, okay, what's the exponent on the inside? And that's the numerator. So this would be x to the first. So this is how it would look. All right, let's do one more, and you can probably do this one pretty quick. What if I gave you x to the 1/4? Well, once again, we know our answer is going to be in a radical, because we can, it's pretty much a definition that we can change any fraction exponent to a radical. Okay, so now what's going to go on the inside? Well, x. What's the power, or what's the root? What type of root do we have? What's the index? Well, remember, that's the bottom number, the denominator. So this is the 4th root of x. Now let's make this a little bit more difficult. Now, what if I gave you x to the 5/2? Okay, let's look at that. Well, here's the question. First of all, any fraction exponent can be written as what? Well, it can be written as a radical. So that's the first thing I would do if I were you. Okay, now what's going to go inside the radical? Well, that's going to be the base of our exponent. So that's just going to be x. All right, now, what is the index, or what type of root do we have? Well, the bottom number is going to tell us that, the denominator. So this is going to be a square root. All right, which you don't have to write it. I'll keep it there just so you can see it. Now the question is, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with this 5 on the top? Remember, that's going to be the exponent on the inside. Okay, now we could actually simplify this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that on this video just because I've already done a video on simplifying radicals with variables. So go check that out if you want. But this would essentially end up being, let's see, x squared square root x. That would be our final answer if we needed to simplify, which usually it's standard to simplify. How about we do, let me actually look, because let me find which one I want to do. How about we do this? Let's do a cube root, just so you can see. How about we do, actually no, let's not do a cube root. Let's do another one of these. Let's do k to the 7 over 2. All right, now, once again, you're probably getting pretty good at this by now, but let's set this up. I'll do it the long way. So first thing we want to do, we know we can write a fraction exponent as a radical. So then we want to decide, okay, what goes on the inside? Well, that's going to be k. Then we want to decide what's our index. What type of root do we have? Our index is 2, so this is a square root. All right, so I won't write it this time because we know no index means square root. All right, now where's that 7 go? Well, 7 is going to be the power of the inside, and this would be our answer. But we can actually simplify this. Let's see, this would end up being k to the 3rd square root k, I believe. Once again, if you need help on that part, just go check out the other video I put up on simplifying radicals with variables, and you'll be good to go. All right, so now let's transition into the opposite direction. And here's what I mean by that. What if I gave you the square root of x and I told you I want this in exponential form, which just means write it as an exponent. All right, so how would you handle that? Well, it's actually the same process, just in reverse. So now what we do is we say, okay, instead of using the base of my exponent, I'm going to use the inside of the radical, or the radicand. So we're going to make that the base of our exponent, and then we need to decide what is my exponent, because we know it's going to be a fraction. It's going to be something over something. So let's figure out what those somethings are. So let's see. On the bottom, if you remember just a second ago, we used the index from the denominator, which means the index now tells us this denominator. So the denominator is going to be 2. And then the power of the inside, we pulled that from the numerator. So now this 1, which is the power of x, is going to be our numerator. And this would be our fraction. Let's look at another one, which things are looking really colorful, which is pretty good, I guess. All right. Actually, I'm going the opposite of red. I just showed you the answer, but that's fine. We can look at it. Let's say I gave you the cube root of x. Let's do that. So once again, the inside of our radical is going to be the base of our exponent. Because remember, we're writing this in exponential form. And we can do this at any point when we need it. Okay? So then, all right, I need my fraction exponent. And where am I going to get that from? Well, I know I use the index and the power on the inside. Your job is really to just know index is denominator, so 3 goes on the bottom. Power on the inside is numerator, so it would be x to the 1/3. All right? Now, let's make this a little bit more challenging, because obviously we have to do that. Let's say we had the cube root of 16. Okay? How could we rewrite that so that it's an exponential setup, or we can write an exponential form? All right, so first, and I would suggest trying this on your own. First, we're going to use the radicand, or what's under the radical, 16. Now we need an exponent for that. So we're going to use 3, and 16 is just to the first power. So our fraction is going to either be 3 over 1 or 1 over 3. Your job is to remember this index tells you denominator. So it's 1 over 3. And it is that simple. All right, let's make this a little bit more difficult. Let's say we have the cube root, actually, yeah, we can do a cube root, that'll be fine. So the cube root of 11 to the second power. All right, so now we're making this a little bit more difficult, but let's go through the process. Exponential form, if we want to rewrite this as an exponent, we need the base for our exponent, which is going to be the inside, which is 11. Don't worry about this exponent 2 yet, we just care about the base 11. Okay, so now we need to figure out our fraction. Well, we're going to use 3 and 2, and our job is to remember the index is the bottom. So the fraction is going to be 2 over 3. And remember, this is all basically the exact same concept we started at the beginning with. I'm just going in the opposite direction now. So let's do one more, and we'll call it a day. So let's say I gave you the 4th root of k to the 5th. What would that look like if I wanted that as an exponent? So first thing we would do, take out k, that's our base. Then we need to structure 4 over 5 or 5 over 4. Remember, index is always denominator. So 4 goes on the bottom, 5 goes on top, and that would be rewritten. All right, so if you liked this video or enjoyed it, feel free to share it with somebody, like, subscribe, whatever you need to do, and that'll be it for this video.